accomplished my doctorate at the Pontifical University of John Paul II, Krakow, Poland.
Awesome.
And the topic was symbolism of the frankincense and showbread. This is doctoral dissertation, which explains the text of Leviticus 24, 1 through 9, where it is said about the so-called showbread. In Hebrew, it is called lechem panim, which means the bread of face, probably because the showbread was facing the Ark of the Covenant.
Wow.
So the meeting tent had two main parts. The first was called Holy Place, and then the second, beyond the curtain, was a most holy place. And in this first chamber, there were three important utensils. On the right side, which means on the north, was the golden table with two piles of showbread, 6 in each. Then in the center was the golden altar of incense. And on the left side, which is on the south side, was the menorah.
So the orientation of this obviously is you're standing from the east.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure there's a significance to that.
Because in the meeting tent, as well as later in the Jerusalem temple, there was only one entrance, which was simultaneously the exit.
Yes.
So
also where the Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, the original sanctuary.
Yes, everything comes from the east, according to the Old Testament. Priests were serving daily in the first room, the chamber, you can call it. They offered incense sacrifices twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, the so-called evening sacrifice, which was at 9 hours of the day, which is 3 p.m. Exactly, this is the time when Jesus Christ dies on the cross, because his sacrifice sums up all the sacrifices of the Old Testament. But what is very interesting, on this golden table, which was located on the northern side, the priests were offering 12 loaves of unleavened bread in two piles, 6 in each. And this showbread was changed every Sabbath in the morning. And only priests were permitted to consume this sacred bread, and only in the meeting tent, not outside.
And this was before the temple was built, right?
Before the temple was built, yes. And it is very interesting that this bread, each showbread was baked of 2 omers, which is 2/10 of ephah. When God was sending manna to the people of Israel, each one was to gather 1 omer daily.
Right.
But for the Sabbath, 2 omers, because on the Sabbath they could not, to perform any kind of work. So the 2 omers of each bread indicates between the lines that this was sabbatical bread. And it represented the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel offered in the showbread their spiritual sacrifice. We have different sacrifices at the time of the Old Testament, like burnt offering, peace offering, thanksgiving, or sin offerings. But it is very interesting that of all the sacrifices which were performed, offered to God at the time of the Old Testament, only showbread was a perpetual sacrifice. Why? Because when the people were on their journey from Egypt to the Promised Land, going by stages, once they were moving to another place, the whole meeting tent had to be folded up and all the sacrifices ceased, because the bloody sacrifices were offered on a bronze altar which was located in front of the entrance to the meeting tent. And what the priest did with the showbread, they did not consume it, but they would wrap it with 3 different materials. One of them was crimson red. And once, the showbread, together with this golden table, was wrapped with 3 materials, only then the Levites, who are also priests but not consecrated priests like those from the lineage of Aaron, only then they could take this golden table with the showbread and carry it to the next stage, the next place. So this sacrifice never ceased.
Wow.
This is really a perpetual sacrifice.
Which, of course, is a sign and a figure.
It is unbloody sacrifice. Bloody sacrifices had to be offered at a certain time, and they did not have this quality of perpetuality.
Wow.
Only the showbread, which shows you very clearly how this sacrifice prefigured the Eucharist.
Amen.
That is why in the final statement of my doctoral dissertation, I say that the sacrifice of showbread can be called the Old Testament proto-Eucharist.
Wow.
And what is absolutely stunning, this text from the book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 1 through 9, is never read in the church.
Oh, really?
And
It's
this
not in the
text,
triannual
never,
cycle?
in 3-year cycle.
Was it in the V2 Sordo cycle, the 1-year cycle?
No, I don't think so. They had less readings.
Of course.
And this text should be the first one from the Old Testament for Corpus Christi. That is why when I translate my doctorate, I hope, into English, I would like to send my book to the Apostolic See with, a request. Please include this reading for Corpus Christi. We have A, B, C.
Every June.
Yes. So that at least, in 1 year, we should read this wonderful text, because, we have Corpus Christi feast, and we read about Solomon, about his sacrifices, how many thousands of animals he sacrificed to the Lord. But the Eucharist is about the unbloody sacrifice.
Right.
It brings us to the right away to the upper room. And then Jesus Christ completes on the cross what he gives to his disciples in an unbloody sacrifice. And it is very puzzling to me that I tried to find materials to my dissertation, and I found only one article on the showbread written by Gane, G-A-N-E, in 1982 or 92, I don't remember now, but
Sure.
I remember 2.